What, Lindsay, is your favorite baseball radio call of all time?
Ooh, that's tough.
I am bringing the heat. That is a 97-mile-an-hour fastball on the inside corner for you today.
You are bringing the heat. I'm going to say I was listening to Ben Ingram of the Atlanta Braves radio network call the Jorge Soler home run in Houston in the World Series.
Yeah.
That ball that I'm pretty sure has still not come down.
Yeah.
And just the emotion that like in his voice, because that was the moment, I think, when we all said, oh yeah, Atlanta's winning the World Series.
Yeah.
This is going to happen. And so I think it's the emotion tied to that. The call itself was fine. Ben's good, but it was the emotion tied to it.
Yeah. That's a good one. And Ben is excellent. I love that. I love listening to Ben on the radio. And his call a few years ago when they swept the Mets late in the season, you come for the Kings, you better not miss. You know, that was fantastic. I gotta go skip. I gotta go skip Carey in the Braves '92. Francisco Cabrera.
Braves win.
Yeah,
Braves win. That's a good one.
So, and right before, because he sets it up perfectly, and like some of these great calls are set up perfectly by what is said right before them.
Mm-hmm.
I remember like an Auburn football game in 2000 against Wyoming, right before Rudy Johnson's big run. Wyoming had momentum, and Mike Tirico says, but it could all change in one play. And on the next play, Rudy goes, 1,000 yards and breaks 1,000 tackles and whatnot. So, but in the says this, if he, there's a gap or there's a hole in left center, if he hits it there, we can dance in the streets.
And then he
on the next pitch, base hit, Bream scores, Braves win. So
there's before every season starts, or I guess before every postseason starts. This is a little aside real quick before we get going. There's a video that I found on YouTube, and somebody took the television broadcast of that entire ninth inning, and they overlaid the radio call for that entire inning. And like right before the postseason starts, I just sit there, I just turn it on, and I just watch it like it's live.
Yeah.
And it's fun. So that's in retrospect, I probably should have said that, but I was just thinking about what's the most recent one that stood out to me for baseball. So that's that.
That's good stuff. Well, this is the Auburn Baseball Show. He is Lindsey Crosby. I'm Brad Law, and Auburn goes to Kentucky this weekend. We're going to preview that for you here on this edition of the show. How about 7 winning weekends in a row for the Auburn baseball team going back to last season?
I feel like this is what you expected to happen. Like this is kind of where you feel like Auburn baseball is back. The stuff that happened last year, you can kind of put it in the rearview mirror. You ended the season last year on a high note with, I think you won like the last 2 series, maybe.
Yeah.
And now you've got this. It really feels like, hey, Auburn baseball is back, and they should be in every single series for the rest of the year. And there were times last year when it didn't necessarily feel like that. And I think that note right here is pretty good because Butch told the players this going into Tuesday night and going into what's going to happen this week. He said, last year we were 0-4 against Alabama State and Kentucky. You handled the Alabama State part of that a little closer than maybe you wanted, but you handled the Alabama State part of that. Now let's take on Kentucky. How are you feeling going into the series, Brad?
Really confident. I love the identity of this team. I keep going back to they don't give anything away. They really don't. Like, you don't see them open up and try to pull everything. You don't see them press all that often. It's going to happen a little bit. It's baseball. It's a lot of pitches, a lot of at-bats over the course of a season. But for the young guys to go do what they did at home against Vanderbilt over the weekend, the young guys and Steele, to have that series that they had, and, your upperclassmen didn't hit the ball all that well.
Mm-hmm.
I talked to Gabe Gross before the game against Alabama State. I asked him, is this your most potent offensive group? And he said, not yet, but it could be. It could be if it can get there. So, is this the weekend that we see the lineup top to bottom hit the ball effectively. I don't know. Georgia hit against this Kentucky team pretty effectively all weekend long. And now Kentucky's got a few pop. They get a little pop in the bat too. But they're among, they're bottom half of the team or bottom half of the league in average.
Mm-hmm.
Right around the middle, I think, in terms of ERA. And I don't know that their schedule, Lindsay, has challenged them ahead of this weekend the way Auburn's schedule has challenged it heading into this weekend.
Yeah, when you look at who they've played, it's a lot of they never really got that quality team that's going to give you a look at this type of pitching you would see. I think that's the big difference. And the hitters that can properly punish a mistake. They faced Lipscomb doubleheader. They split the doubleheader. They run ruled Lipscomb in the first game and then lost 3-1 in the second, which is kind of funny. But Belmont, Hofstra, Evansville and Morehead State, Eastern Kentucky, Wofford, they never really got a challenge until they went to Georgia.
Yeah.
And they go 1-2. It was a good win on Saturday, 10-7. Georgia's top 5 team in the country. I thought they could take the series. I was wrong. Flat out just was wrong on that. But Auburn, to your point, you faced much better pitching. You faced much more lethal hitters in the non-conference. And I do think the pitching's going to end up being big here because Kentucky's already lost a couple guys. They have questions. And I want to kind of give you an idea of what Auburn should try to do this weekend, if you're ready.
Love it.
Okay. 3 games against Georgia. The Kentucky pitching staff, 23 walks, 11 hit by pitch, and 11 home runs allowed.
So 34 free base runners.
34 free base runners.
In 27 innings.
Yes. And 20, I can't do math in my head, but 36 runs scored by Georgia in 3 games. Yeah. I think there's a direct correlation there.
Oh, there's 100%.
There's definitely a direct correlation there. Yeah.
Free base runners are going to mean you're going to score more runs if you have more free base runners. Yeah, look, Kentucky scored 6, 10, and 10, right? So they scored 26 runs. And they averaged nearly 9 runs a ball game on the road. That's impressive. Now, if the wind's blowing just right in Athens, that can certainly help you. That can be a hitter's ballpark for sure, as we'll find out next weekend ourselves, hopefully. I didn't know I didn't realize they gave up 34 free base runners. And Auburn that's another reason that I feel really good about it from an Auburn perspective, is because Auburn has been patient. They don't mind standing in and being hit. Bless Cade Ballou's heart. He's probably not 100% this year because of it. But, they'll draw walks and they'll draw hit by pitches. They'll work their way on base. And, So Kentucky's ability to limit those and Auburn's ability to take advantage of those in the cold and the wind. The defense is going to be another factor in this series, because I don't think there's a game where the wind's going to be below 15 miles an hour for the majority of the game. We're talking 15, 20 miles an hour most of the time. So, how effectively can you play defense in 45 degrees and windy conditions?
Kentucky, obviously, even though they were in Georgia, not in Kentucky, they obviously struggled defensively at Georgia. They committed 5 errors on the weekend. I mean, this is it. The big story, when I look at this Kentucky team, the thing that I think about, and I think it's worse on the pitching side, but it's just the injuries that they've been dealing with already. They lost Oliver Boone. It was a transfer out of Cal before spring practice even started. Chase Alderman came over from Eastern Kentucky right before opening day. He went down. So it's 2 of their main pitchers that they lost. And their best hitter by far has been a transfer from Columbia. Cole Hage is I think he's like a 7th-year player.
Yeah.
He graduated high school in 2020. So he's on his 5th year of college baseball. But he leads this team in everything. He's batting .424. He's playing a good outfield, 6 home runs, 9 stolen bases. They lead the conference in stolen bases. They do a Vandy thing, but even more extreme.
Yeah.
But Cole Hayes is doing everything. He leads them in slugging, second walks. He does it all. And
I think they only have 2 or 3 other guys batting over 300 for the year.
Yeah.
And again, injuries are a problem. We know that.
Yeah.
We know that around here. We know what it's like to lose a couple of pitchers to injury and, not have your rotation set the way you'd like for it to be throughout the quarter, like early in conference play. It seems like they've dealt with that twice over the last 4 or 5 years. And well, you start behind the 8 ball when you go that way. Running is going to be interesting because Vanderbilt didn't try to run all that much. The reputation of Chase Fralick preceded him and affected the game plan in that Vanderbilt series. So Kentucky playing at home. Yeah. One. So Kentucky playing at home, are they more aggressive? They all else be danged. They just try to run and see. Do they test Chase a little more maybe than Vanderbilt did? I expect that. And so that will be another key is how effectively can you hold the runners and how effectively can Chase throw them out. And
we saw on Friday, Sam Dutton, who's going to start again this Friday. We saw Sam Dutton he was a lot of work. He was throwing over to first a lot, but he was doing a lot of extra work to try to hold those runners. And then it's going to be most of the same rotation for Auburn, right? Yep. Butch said it's going to look the same. Cade Fisher on Saturday, Christian Chatterton on Sunday, but Andreas Alvarez is going to factor into that Saturday game. He's probably going to be the guy who would follow Fisher. You have Cam Tilley as an option as well. I kind of want to get to that pitching conversation in a second, but it feels like you need to come out early, very cognizant of the base runners, because in the top of that first inning, they have to establish the run. And I would argue, not to the extent that Vandy was, but I'd argue if Kentucky does not establish a dangerous and potent running game, they don't have a chance of winning the series. I think it comes down to that because they're not reliable power production wise. They're not reliable enough on making solid contact. They've got to get the ball in play and they've got to get free passes really to do it. And that's just Auburn's got to stop that this weekend. Yeah, no, I agree. It's I think you're right in that this series doesn't come down to home runs and doubles. I think it comes down to stolen bases or double plays or walks or other. I mean, teams are only hitting 205 against Kentucky. Okay. So they have 2 starting pitchers who have, sub 175 batting averages against and sub 3 earned run averages. That's when you get to this point in the year and you've had 5 starts, and that'll get your attention. So, where can you steal a base? Where can you steal a run? Vanderbilt doesn't commit errors defensively, right? But they made back-to-back errors in the game Sunday that led to a run scoring, and that extra run, was the difference in the game, which was the difference in the series. So those hidden base runners, stolen base runners, I think that's what this series comes down to, as opposed to like a Georgia series for Kentucky that did come down to home runs and doubles and just how much can one side club the ball over the other. Yeah. What's they call it? Bully ball? Is that what they call it? Where you're just trying to sit there and hit a bunch of home runs. Yeah. The Phillies call that gorilla ball. There you go. Thank you. I knew there was something there for that. Yeah. Like it's going to come down to Auburn making them throw strikes and then putting those balls in play on the offensive side. Like that's what you have to do. Yeah. It feels like they don't have the stuff that a lot of other SEC programs have on the mound. These 2 guys are really good, right? They're what is it? I was looking at some of the scouting reports. I want to say it's McKay. He transferred from South Dakota State. Fastball, cutter, changeup, curveball, doing a really good job of mixing everything, but it's a low 90s fastball. There's not a ton of movement on these pitches. It's all sequencing. It's all throwing strikes, and it's all getting you to make weak contact. Yeah. And I think you have to take advantage of this. Can I real quick? I watched Tuesday night's game with the analytics team. Guess who is number 2 on this team at average exit velocity on their batted balls?
Somebody who pitched Tuesday.
No, sorry. Auburn hitter who has the second best exit velocity on the average exit velocity on the team. I had
Eric
no clue.
Snow.
It's Eric Snow.
I believe that.
No clue.
Man, I'm on the Snow train. I am on the. I'm a member of the Snow Patrol. I am firmly.
Do you have the little barrel on your neck?
Yeah, I should have that. I am all in. I think he has done such a great job as a leadoff hitter. Again, we've talked about it on this show before. He's not a guy that's going to steal you 20, 25 bases from the leadoff spot, but he might start the game with a double. Mm-hmm. He might take the first pitch of the ball game deep. He's likely not going to strike out. I think he's still sitting on just 4 strikeouts. That's absurd.
In this kind of giant...
We played 21 games. You're striking out once every week plus.
Which is what makes him a great leadoff hitter. The fact that he's putting the ball in play, he's giving you a chance. That's all you can really ask for. I've got it here.
All right. He's terrific power. How many extra base hits he got after last night? Because he doubled and homered.
He has 11 extra base hits out of 30 hits.
Yeah.
It's a slugging of 590. And he has 6 strikeouts. Here's the big thing for me. Nobody on Auburn's team has more than 2 double plays that they've grounded into. It's just they're able to get the ball elevated enough to not so they can still take advantage of having base runners.
Yeah, there's a couple things to that. They're not rolling over on top of balls. They're not chasing stuff down that's not a strike as much. They're running very hard. The overall speed and athleticism on this team is higher maybe than what it's been in previous years. I mean, you have Bub Terrell, Chris Rembert really getting down the line in a big way. Eric Guevara back in the lineup now, hustling down the line. So
Cooper McMurray, don't forget Cooper. He lost that weight to be a better base runner. Yeah,
that's right. No, but they've put an emphasis on it. They put an emphasis on really getting down that first base line as fast as they possibly can. But pitch selection or swing selection, in addition to, again, that's staying at your approach. That's not giving anything away. That's not lunging for something. It's not chasing. It's working ahead. It's being ahead in counts.
Yeah.
Being ahead in counts so you can be more selective. All those things. See, numbers aren't just numbers on the page. They reflect something that is happening. And it just reflects this team's approach offensively.
Something that Butch has talked about a few times, and you can see it when you play. And I know you've heard it and I've heard it. I want to make sure everybody who's watching these games has heard this, is Butch talks about in your at-bat, the first 2 strikes are yours.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where you've seen, I want to say it was one of the weekend games. I know you and I talked about this, but all 4 hits in the big inning were 2 strikes, the opposite field, because once they got 2 strikes, this is Auburn's at bat.
Yep.
And now your job is to put the ball in play. A lot of them had a shift on against them. They went the other way against it. And that's the approach you're talking about. They never seem to break that approach outside of a little minor blip here or there. And I haven't seen discipline like that in a college team period in a while. Never mind here at Auburn.
I feel like, I feel like we're seeing guys celebrate getting walked more this year than we have before. And we're seeing a lot more 0-2 counts turn into walks for Auburn hitters than we ever have before. Just not giving in. So I think that's a credit to Gabe and the job he's done with them. I think it's a credit to the players. And it was the Friday game of the Vanderbilt series where they had the 4-run inning, and every one of the hits was a backside hit with 2 strikes. Every one of them. And not coincidentally, after that game, the coaches said, if we play like that, you'll win. I mean, you can beat anybody playing like that. That's true. It doesn't matter what number is beside a team's name or what that team has on the front of their jersey. You play that kind of baseball, you beat anybody.
Yeah, that I think we talked about it on the Tuesday recap, but that Friday night team can take down any baseball team in the country.
Yep.
And
That's right.
I don't know if we've had a complete team at Auburn like that in a while, where you could say, like, literally anybody, it doesn't matter. That team from Friday night can beat them. And that's what you have to harness. And some of that, the guys talked about, some of that comes from Sam Dutton, right? From him going out there. He's not going to give you 7 every week, but him going out there and just pounding the strike zone, picking up strikes, and them kind of feeding off of that. And to your point from earlier, just keep adding on every other inning, adding another run here, 2 runs there. And the hope you have to have this weekend against Kentucky is just that they don't ever get that big hit where they could get back into it.
Right. No, you're exactly right. All right. You wanted to get into pitching questions for this weekend, right?
Yes. I think it's both ways, right? Yeah. Pitching questions for Auburn and on Saturday with Cade Fisher, right? We talked about this on Tuesday. We mentioned it. He is going to start, from what Butch told us after Tuesday night's game. That's the plan, is to start Cade Fisher on Saturday. What do we need to see out of Cade Fisher for him to be successful against Kentucky, and then I think stay in the rotation going forward? Because it's been a lot of up and down performances.
Yeah. It's a great question. I don't know that it can be answered in a linear fashion. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's a black and white.
It's not a hard and fast thing. Yeah.
Right. Because it depends. Does he get 3? Can he get 3 innings this week? That would be an improvement over last week. It would be a sign of moving in the right direction.
Right.
And then who comes in after him and what do they do? And does Auburn win the game or do you lose the game? Are you in position to win or are you in position to lose when he exits the ball game? I think you don't determine whether Auburn's in a position to win or lose a game until much later in the game this year because of what this offense is capable of doing. So it's hard to answer even that variable is when he leaves the game, are you in a position to win or in a position to lose? So I don't know. I'm in the camp of kind of my first answer there. If you were to get 3 innings this week, that would be a step in the right direction. That would represent growth in this journey this season, and that's all that matters. His freshman year doesn't matter. Last year doesn't matter. What he did at Florida doesn't matter. Can he take the next step for himself and for the team this year? And I think 3 would be excellent to see from him Saturday.
Yeah, since coming back from injury, it was 1 2/3 against Oregon State, 2 versus Old Dominion, 2 1/3 versus Vanderbilt. So that would be progress. I think to get to 3, just kind of from what it's looked like to me, is there's a difference in his stuff after the first inning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when he sits down and gets back up. And I think figuring out the discrepancy there. Is it an adrenaline dump early? Is it just still lingering, conditioning issues from being out and having the injury? Like, what is going on? But that, I feel like to get to the 3, you've got to have the quality of the second inning stuff and the third inning stuff be closer to what you're seeing in the first. Because in the first inning, he's phenomenal. Yep. I want to say it was Vanderbilt. When you say he struck out 2 of the 3, bunch of whiffs, he was great. And then in the second inning, the stuff wasn't the same. And I think that was part of the reason why he didn't make it a full 3. Yeah. So that's going to kind of be what I'm watching for on Saturday.
The other approach, like the I don't know if this is necessarily devil's advocate. This is just another way to look at it. Is he went an inning, then he went 2, then he went 2 1/3. So they're being very careful with him. Mm-hmm. He is extending from what he did the previous week. Like, you're not going to ask him to go 7 this week and then be disappointed if he doesn't go 7, because that's not where he is right now. Yeah. And with his comeback. So I think so far he's taking those incremental steps, small though they may be. Mm-hmm. He is moving forward. He's not moving backward. And so if you can keep moving forward, does it go 2 2/3 or 3? All right. If that's the case, then I still think you're fine. Yeah. I still think you're fine. Because if he makes that kind of progress, and we're looking up maybe 5 weeks from now, you're in the back half of the SEC season, and he's going 4 1/3 or 5. Mm-hmm. Aren't you delighted with that? Aren't you ecstatic?
I think you get there. The pitch count, I think, does matter too. Watching 39 pitches against Oregon State, 38 versus Old Dominion, but he picked up an extra out versus Old Dominion he didn't get versus Oregon State, 50 versus Vandy. So he's pushing that as well. I think maybe it's a pitch count thing, and you have to hope he's just a little more efficient. You can get out of some innings or some at-bats earlier. That could be part of it as well. But I do think that there's a couple of different aspects to it. Like you said, no hard and fast rule, but that's the biggest storyline going into the weekend from the pitching side to me is what does that Saturday start look like? Because you feel pretty comfortable. You can build around Sam Dutton. You feel pretty comfortable with the progress that Christian Chatterton has been able to show on Sundays. It was interesting SEC opener, but for the most part, he's been pretty good on Sundays. It's Saturday. What can you do? And then again, is it Andreas Alvarez or is it Cam Tilley? You've seen a lot of Tilley, but Alvarez is now a weekend guy.
I'm interested too in what the weather does. Again, cold and windy. And Sunday, right now as we talk, Sunday looks wet.
Ooh.
So, and it looks wet a lot of the day. And they're not going to hang around till 8 o'clock at night to start a game because Auburn's got to bus back.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you play 2 Saturday? And if so, how does that impact your pitch plan?
Exactly.
How much rope you give guys? So, like that's not necessarily for us to flesh out on this episode, but it is something to keep in the back of your mind that could be a factor in the weekend and what Auburn does on the mound.
Yeah, it's supposed to be 10 to 20 mile-an-hour winds on Friday and Saturday, and then it's 20 plus and half an inch of rain on Sunday. That could always, like you said, I could always mess with things there. Okay, we didn't formally do it, but I think we've kind of covered the keys to victory, right? Yeah. Auburn's hitters being patient, staying in their approach, and taking what Kentucky's pitching staff gives them. Controlling the running game.
Yep.
And then what do we need to look for from Auburn's pitchers as far as their key to success this weekend? Is there anything specific you think, or is it just in general, not allowing too many base runners, or is it avoiding the big hit? What is the big thing for Auburn's pitching staff this weekend? Because that's where I'm kind of struggling to pick one thing.
Yeah, I'm looking at strikeout numbers for Kentucky. They don't strike out all that much. 19 games, only 119 strikeouts. So that's about, 6 or so per game. I think if Auburn's pitching could average about 9 strikeouts a game, all right, go about 50% more than what Kentucky is used to. They were able to do that against Vanderbilt for the first game. They were able to do that against Vandy on Friday. So I think that, and then you can't give up 4 and 5 run innings. Can you limit the most damage Kentucky does in an inning to 3 runs or less? I like Auburn's offense and the consistency of the offense if you can keep them from putting a 4 or 5 spot on the board.
I think that's a good way to look at it is limit the big inning and strike out a guy per inning. That kind of makes sense as far as some realistic goals that we can see given what Kentucky does well, whether it's taking the extra base, stealing bases, how that can get you into a victory. So series predictions would be 2-1. We always seem to do that. But if Auburn comes out of this with a 2-1 victory, and I'll go first if you want, because I'm surprising you with this, who would be the MVP for Auburn of the weekend? I'm struggling with this. I really am struggling with this. And I didn't think I would. It's my own question. I knew I was going to ask this.
Go ahead. I'll give you one.
Okay.
Derek Fabian.
I was thinking Derek Fabian because the defense and the offense.
Exactly. Covering second base, starting or being the relay man for double plays to take care of extra base runners. And then offensively, Vandy challenged him with fastballs a lot after I think he had a 2-run hit in Friday's game. And they just kind of came after him with fastballs, and they won more battles than they lost. And so I look for Derek to have a bounce-back weekend and win more battles than he loses at the plate.
Yeah, I was thinking Derek Fabian. I should have pulled the trigger on that. It feels like it's not quite repeating myself, But if it's not Derek Fabian, I'm going to again go to Chase Fralick. I'm going to go with, you mentioned how much Vanderbilt respected his ability to stop the running game. They didn't even try. Kentucky is going to try. They know that they have to, unlike Vanderbilt. So Derek Fabian's going to have to continue the offensive success, right? He's been a big part. Him and Lucas Steele right now have both stepped up in the absence of Ike Irish. But you're going to have to see him have a good all-around game. He caught all 3 games against Vanderbilt. Maybe he'll catch all 3 here, but he's got to do a good job with controlling the running game. The pitchers can't see these guys. He obviously can. So he's got to take the lead on that. So there you go. 2-1 for both of us. You have Fabian. I have, and ultimately I expect we come back next week. Hopefully we can get Sonny with us. He's been playing spring training games every day, but I honestly expect that we're going to come in and we're going to be talking about a series victory. You're on the call all weekend. What time are the games, Brad? Do you know?
5:30 Central Friday, 1 o'clock Saturday, Sunday.
As of now, pending weather.
As of now, yeah.
As of now,
we got a little bit to go before the weather shakes out, and it's going to be a big weekend. We know that basketball people are there, baseball people are there.
Bunch of basketball fans coming up for you.
Yeah. A lot of Auburn people in Lexington. And if you're watching this show on YouTube, not listening to the audio version, we can tell you that our in the booth cam for all 3 broadcasts will be available. We can't do that for basketball because the NCAA and Westwood One prohibit it. So no basketball camera stream, but the baseball camera for all 3 games, regardless of when they're played, will be available. So you can check that out on YouTube.
And if you don't like listening to the television commentators, you just mute that and you play Brad Law. That's what we do in my house. For every away game.
And we have Andy Burcham for the opener.
Hey,
he's going to be in town
Andy on Friday.
We're going to get him for the opener. So we're excited about that.
That worked out really well.
Yeah.
This has been the Barn Baseball Show for Thursday, March 20th. If you're listening on audio, do us a favor. Subscribe to the podcast feed. Leave us a 5-star review as well. You're on YouTube. Subscribe to the Barn Baseball Show and also thebarnauburn.com. All of us, me, Brad, and Sonny are going in there dropping different notes and things like that. You can also catch Brad on, obviously, Village Vice, the flagship show of the Barn Baseball Podcast Network. And until next time, this has been the Barn Baseball Show.